let's do a quick overview of RBD fracture simulation again. So that could be a recap from last year. So I want to combine it with a mocap character. So I don't have a mocap character, so I'll just go to the mixer mode here, as you see. Let's grab a character action from here. I don't know, a kick maybe. And that looks cool, like a flip kick of a, so just imagine that it's a superhero or something, does a flip kick. 24 frames per second is my project frame rate. So I done, so you know, based on your project frame rate. So I just download that. So some might ask, okay, this is an FBX, and how can I bring it into Houdini? If it is FBX, you can directly bring it into Houdini. So like even out of Maya, like new Houdini KineFX can bring FBX. If I press tab and add a geometry node here, and I'll call it RBD tutorial. So here, if you search for FBX, you have this FBX character import, and you can point to your character. I think I downloaded them somewhere here. You can point to the character. It gets loaded. You see that, but it doesn't, like, the animation doesn't move. But the animation is within the same FBX file. So I copy this to the animation folder, paste it there. Still doesn't move because I have to kind of like skin it again here. We call it bone deform node here. Just drop a bone deform node here, and then you have your character animation within Houdini. So but some might say, okay, you know what, I don't have FBX, it's been rigged using Rapid Rig or MGear inside Maya. How can I send it into Houdini? That's easy as well. So this animation is about 65 frames in 24 frames per second. So like this is my animation, so, and I have my geometries are 2 sections. So you just select your geometries, and then you go to the cache, Alembic cache, export selection to Alembic. I just export it to the same folder. Like actually, let's export it to the Houdini workshop here, and I call it kick. So make sure that it is 1 to 65 frames, and make sure that UV write is on. Export selection, and here in Houdini, you just right click and search for Alembic, and then bring it in from desktop, Houdini workshop, kick. So now you see that, oh, it's loaded or not. Oh, there it is. But it is huge because Alembic out of Maya uses a different, Maya uses a centimeter as unit. Houdini uses like I think it's 100 times smaller. Okay, that's the right. So now you see the Alembic animation is loaded too. So this is the two-way of bringing it in. So I just work with the FBX as is. Oh, they don't match. Oh, sort of. Oh, the frame rate doesn't match. Probably I have exported Alembic as 30 frames per second or something. Anyway, let's set our timeline to 65, and Here, just imagine that this is a superhero and wants to just like kick a wall and break it into pieces. So I just add a box here, and not here actually. I'm gonna create the box here inside. Press tab, create a box, and the box is somewhere here. Just the same thing that I said, like I want this box to be right always on the ground. So copy this uniform scale value and paste half of it to the center, like paste relative reference divided by 2. So now if I scale this like wall like any size I want, it's always on the ground. So like I want this that much, then I make it smaller, or thinner. Then I move it using a transform node. Slightly back here. So like here is where she kicks the wall. Like if I press W, and here if I go to the wall, and if I template her, yes, here is kind of where she kicks the wall. So let's crack the wall the way we like. So if you remember, we just add RBD material fracture, and then in RBD material fracture, it fractures the wall, and this is a terrible fracture, and I can start analyzing it with exploded view, RBD exploded view, drop it there. So I want, so let me just like get it closer to where she kicks. First of all, I want the cracking happens here, start from here. So second of all, I want it to be much more elaborate. First of all, let's see how the cracking happens. This is a Voronoi fracture. Voronoi is a mathematical model. Voronoi. This mathematical model, it says if you have a bunch of dots somewhere, what is the most optimal way of creating surfaces for each dot? So this is Voronoi fracture. It has 2 layers of fracture. You can turn off the second layer. That is what I do. I just always start with 1 layer of fracturing, and then each layer, so each one of them like gets fractured again and again and again when you go up. But usually we don't go to the 3. So let me delete the 3. Okay. So we only have 1. I wanted to have like, let's say, more points around. So like you see that you can play this around until you get the shape you like. Something like this is a nice shape for me. And then you add another layer of fracturing. Yeah, you see now this is making much more sense. And even I can add the 3rd layer. But this is like fracturing all over the place. I can direct this much better, guys. So how I direct this? If you see here, there's an input to this RBD material fracture. This says extra Voronoi points. So how to create extra Voronoi points to control this? I grab out of this transform node. I search for scatter. So scatter is a very useful node. It just basically scatters a bunch of points into your space. So this wall has a bunch of points. I want this point not to be on the surface of the ball, but inside. So you see that the points are on the surface. So, but I want it to be inside the wall. So you can turn this wall by ISO offset into a cloud. look at the wall, it turned into a cloud. Actually, you can increase the uniform sampling, so it's just like gets, and then scatter your points. Then suddenly you see that the points are inside the wall now. And I only want 1 point. And you see that it's just there, sitting there. So I'm gonna grab that using, I should go to the points, grab that, and then use move tool and move it to where she kicks, basically. Here is where our superhero is kicking on the wall. And I feed this Voronoi point to my RBD fracture. And then here in the RBD fracture, I say that don't use these 5 points, just use my input points. And suddenly you see that, like, if I go back and delete my RBD layers, if I delete all of these layers, and if I use input points instead, where is it? Okay, yes, I want my, not 17 points, but so I just want this to use input points. Scatter seeds. Yeah, so this like kind of realizes input points, and I want just like, let's say, 3 parts. So this is where the fracturing is happening. Then I add another layer, then I add another layer. So you see that like all of the layers start to work around that point now. So let's go to the exploded view. This is not like nice edges here. Now it's time to refine our edges. So we just go here in the chipping, add a bit of chipping in the edges. You see like some chipping is getting added. You just have to wait. Yeah, you see some chipping is added. Then you need some detail on the edges. And I think I don't add interior details because so some details. This is a better fracture on the wall. So you see that I'm art directing my fracturing based on what I want. So this is like, you see that this is the center of the hit, and the fracturing happens around it, which makes a lot more sense. So I don't need my exploded view anymore. So now it's time to do the simulation on the fracture. So simulation for the RBD, or for the rigid body simulations, we have this rigid body solver. So you just type solver and find that, and then hover it on the output of your RBD material fracture, and then you get this like simulation, and it just falls to the ground because there's no ground for it. So you just select your RBD solver, go to the ground, and say it has a ground plane. Now when you play it, nothing happens because we have not said that this creature or this superhero is our collision object. If you look at the RBD solver collision, it has a collision. Oh, not both of them, just the output of them. So it has guide seam, but this one is collision geometry. I put it there, and then I've got a collision geometry. But when I play, it doesn't move, because in the setting I have to say in the collision that this is a deforming static object. Then she moves, but then like this weird thing happens when she kicks the wall. Oh, the entire wall starts moving, and it doesn't break. So first of all, let's fix the entire wall moving, because usually when you create these kind of effects, you have like a big building and everything, and this wall is part of that building, right? So like what you do, like you just make part of it inactive. So you just add a node called RBD configure in the middle, and in the RBD configure you just go and select some pieces that you don't want move. Basically you want them to be active, inactive. You want them to not be active. Click on the group, and then you can press W for better visibility. Just hold shift, select the parts that you don't want them to move. I basically don't want these to move. Press enter, so they are selected and they are inactive. Now when we play, this wall might not fall again, and the reason this time is the bond or the glue between the pieces. She might be able just to crack some of it, but not all of it. Maybe some of the chips. The reason is that the wall is glued so strong together. Where that glue comes from is a constraint that is generated within this RBD material fracture. Inside constraint, you see the glue strength here. So like you just make it way weaker. So like maybe 10 to 5. And then now play. Hopefully this time we get a result. Yeah. So she breaks it into pieces and then like lands on the floor, and then you see there's still the pieces interact with her. So like she has the interaction. So now how I can send it back to Maya, or how can I save it to the disk? You need to do the file cache. So file cache. First of all, this is a very good habit that you always just create a cache, and a file cache saves into your project folder. So at the moment my project folder is on my desktop, Houdini, and here maybe I forgot to create a project. I should have created a project right at the beginning. File, new project. I'll call this RBD, and the place to save them is Houdini workshop folder, and then accept. Now I have a job, which is the and I have to save my project there, call it. So when you have a job, which means you have a folder, you have a project, you can check it in from edit, aliases and variables. In the variables, you can see that, oh, both job and heap should look at this address. You see that my job looks at it, but my heap or Houdini project file doesn't look. So I, like add that there as well. Come on. Yeah. Now they both heap file and then job is looking at the same folder. So now when I save it, it saves there. So I say RBD tutorial, and then that happens because I have saved my project later on, which is not good. So when I save this into the heap geo folder, it's in the same like kind of folder here, in the same folder on the desktop. So it gets cached there. Save to the disk, starts caching. it's already cached. Now, so now, like, you can say that you can kind of disconnect your cache from the past, and everything works. You see that, like, this is the cache file. It reads from your hard drive now. So now what you do, you just say RUP Alembic output. You export it as Alembic file. Again, if you see, it goes to your heap file. You can save it into Alembic here. Say that output.abc. Save it there. Save to disk. Actually, it says render current frame. No, we want frame range from 1 to 65. Save to disk. You see that it just saves all of that Alembics. And in Maya, go to the cache, Alembic, import Alembic, find that folder on the desktop, and then in the ABC, import it, and then there you are. And then there's, where is my RBD? Oh, it's tiny there. Again, the difference between Maya and Houdini units. So now you've got like your RBD loaded in Maya. So that was a very quick overview of how to build up like a RBD fracture and how to art direct it and send it back to Maya.